مصلحا ومجددا فارنوا بنظر طاهر وجنان.
Assalamu Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, dear viewers. With us today we have our beloved brother Ameer from Egypt, and today we will hear how he found and accepted the true Islam, Islam Ahmadiyya. Assalamu Alaikum, brother Ameer. How are you?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm fine, alhamdulillah. How are you? It's a pleasure
Alhamdulillah,
and
brother.
honor to be your host. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah, brother. So we have the opportunity to hear your story today, alhamdulillah. So let us begin with what is your name and background?
So my name is Ameer. I was born and raised in Italy from an Egyptian family. I basically lived my 27 years of life in Italy, studying and working, and then I moved to the UK for a year. And then after that, I moved to Denmark, which is now my home base, where I'm currently following my studies to become a teacher. And it's already 3 years I've been living in Denmark, in Copenhagen.
MashaAllah, brother, really amazing. So what sect or religion were you before Islam Ahmadiyyat, and what were some of your views?
So I'm coming from a Sunni Muslim family. A very regular Muslim family. My mother is a very pious woman. She prays every day. She reads the Quran. My father is also a practicing person. It was a little bit less before, but alhamdulillah, now he got more into Islam, more into religion. I grew up in Italy, and as people may know, Italy is a Catholic, mainly Catholic country. And of course, I grew up in having a Muslim environment at home, and also part of my family is Italian, so we also had a Christian environment at the same time. We used to celebrate Christmas with the Italian family, and of course Ramadan and Muslim celebrations as well. So I grew up in a very open-minded environment, and an environment that was towards acceptance of diversity and of different and respect of different religions as well. And yeah, and growing up into Muslim family, of course, I was taught Quran. I was taught about Islam and how to pray. I learned and memorized verses ayat from the Quran so I could pray. I was fasting, and I was basically following all the practices and trying to stick to the 5 pillars of Islam, as every Muslim should do. But besides that, during my growing, I was going to Egypt during the summer period to visit the Egyptian family, and I remember there were some things that have been taught to me, or stories. I always like to listen to stories. I remember when I was a child, I used to watch. There was like a cartoon series of the. It was named Qisas al-Anbiya, which is the stories of the Anbiya, and I remember about these stories, and I always like to hear stories from people. I always like to listen to stories. I was very interested into that. And some of the views, and one of the main stories that I listened to was about the coming of Jesus, alayhi salam, and the day of judgment, and all the signs that would appear before that. And so talking about the Dajjal, Dabatul Ard, and Yajuj and Majuj, which are Gog and Magog, And so I always used to listen to these stories, which obviously then, I mean, I realized they were like uh, fantasy stories, like constructed stories. They were not respecting the reality of facts. So, for example, mainstream Muslims believe that Isa has ascended to the sky and it's still alive, or that Dajjal is this one-eye monster that will come in the latter days and that will cause destruction, and that uh, he will be like he will have the same powers as God on earth. Auzubillah. And then many other hadiths that he is in chain, and that yeah, like many other stories about him, and that he will travel on a donkey, a flying donkey that will eat fire, that will which people will get into his belly and travel inside his belly, and he will be fueled by fire. Um, and then the Dabba, which is like a, a giant monster, and Yajuj and Majuj, which are two giants hidden behind a mountain, that they are keep on eating this mountain, and this mountain keeps growing and growing and growing again until a point where Allah will stop this mountain, and then they will come out on earth and they will spread corruption and they will do a lot of things which are very scary. So all these things, all these stories, basically, I believe. I mean, because they have been taught to me when I was a kid, going in Egypt for vacation. So obviously, these are stories that are taught to people living in Muslim countries. Um, this way of looking at the ahadith and the prophecies of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And adding to that, a very, very important aspect is the fact that Jesus will descend from the sky in the latter days on Jerusalem, and that there will be this fight with Muslims against Kafir non-believers. So obviously, I would listen to these stories, and if you would always think, oh, Isa is in the sky, and he's sitting on the right side of the throne of God, and he will come back on the latter days, and there will be a war, and then of course angels will aid Muslims in the battle, and then Satan will lead the other battle, and at the end Jesus will lead this war, and Muslims will win. So these are the stories that have been told. And then, of course, growing up in, I would say, high school. Before that, I used to be very interested in reading. I used to read a lot of books, and mainly about anatomy and universe and space and Earth. And then growing up in being more mature and starting to understanding more how the world functions. I mean, and of course, still according to my little understanding, I I then started to have, like every teenager, uh, you have this willingness that you need to be part of something, like you need to have this sense of belonging. And that was a moment when religion didn't interest me anymore for that specific period, and when I was starting to dive and explore other things, and then years have passed, and of course I've been into the word. I have seen a lot of things. I have experienced a lot: joy, pain, and love, hatred, and like a lot of things. I have been into the word, like what we call dunya. I was completely ignorant in the sense of spiritual and religious matters, and until it came a point. I'm not going in detail into these things because I think they are like personal aspect, but everyone can imagine, of course, a guy born in a Western country. I mean, you can, and this is where I would lately connect to the importance of Islam, Ahmadiyya, and Khilafat, which I think is a blessing that many people don't have, because growing up without that, without this guidance, you are lost. You're lost in the world. You don't have a guidance, and you can easily be attracted to other things, which is basically you what you try to fill uh, with materialistic desire, is the void that you try to fill, which it's like a water that doesn't satisfy uh, your thirst. It doesn't. So that was the exact feeling. I kept on drinking and drinking and drinking until there came a point where I realized that this was completely wrong. It's like I had a twist in my head. It's like Allah turned the clock and told me, you need to stop now. You have been living in a certain way, you have been doing certain things. Now it's time for you to recognize that this is not good for you. And I would say I was almost going towards self-destruction, because leads this is what this type of path leads to: self-destruction, and often to suicide, because many people nowadays, we hear a lot about um, suicides in Western countries, mostly in developed country in the Western world, as well as in Japan or other places where you have nothing but materialistic means to fulfill what the void that you have inside of you, which is basically your soul. That what you're trying to fill in is the love of God, what basically everyone is looking for, but still didn't realize. And so then, you know, um, after 11 September, lots of things change in the world. And after 2011, with the Arab Spring, a big turmoil started to spread all over the Middle East, and then consequently terror attacks increased as well. And I saw a lot of injustice, and I could see. And then, of course, we had terror attacks in Europe, and in France, in Germany, in Spain, in the UK, and so on and so forth. And then, what we as Muslim we have faced, it was seeing those people calling themselves Muslims carrying terror attacks in the name of Islam, in the name of Allah, and we not being able to defend properly, or to stand out, or try to explain why these people were doing that. Yes, they are brainwashed. Yes, they are of course radicalized. They follow political movement, or they're mercenaries. They paid money for doing that, but they also follow a certain ideology, which is the ideology that says that everyone else who's not a Muslim is a kafir, and therefore should die, should be killed. And this is not what Islam said. And this is where I started to be confused, because I was diving and researching and trying to find, there was a period where you had these debates, people start to attack you, and you didn't have enough knowledge to reply back, to say, well, this is not true, this is not like that. The only thing I could say was that my parents are Muslim, and they are not like that. My family is Muslim, and they are not like that. I was raised by two loving people who taught me that being educated is much better than like adab fadlun al-ilm, you say in Arabic, which means being educated is better than having knowledge. So this is what I have been taught by my parents, to be a respectful person, to respect other people, and that I always connect that to the way of being a Muslim. And I always thought of my father giving the importance of religion as a relationship among people. So it's not just ibadah, it's not just prayers and worship, but it's also relationship. So ad-din mu'amala. It's like the Prophet Messiah ﷺ said, the two rights need to be fulfilled, which are the most important rights for an Ahmadi Muslim. The rights of the Creator and the rights of its creation. And these are basically the same thing that my father was telling me. So I was very confused. I was really confused. And in the meantime, trying to find my own identity, running away from what I was, of course, because then you are afraid, because then this whole systematic discrimination that happened after 9/11 and the terror attacks and Arab Spring and war in the Middle East, then of course you start to be afraid, because you think, I mean, everyone is against this, and at the same time you distance yourself because this does not represent you. So the automatic result, and which we see nowadays with lots of young youth, lots of young people in the Western world, but you can also recently see that developing also in Europe countries, is that the new generation is completely distancing itself from Islam because of these people, because of these ideologies, of these jihadis, of this way of portraying Islam, and how at the same time is promoted by the mass media, because this also plays an important aspect. So it obviously understandable, yet very sad, to see that a lot of young people are distancing themselves from Islam. And this is what I did as well. But deep down, I always felt as a Muslim. But then there was a period when I started to research, to look into other ways of worshiping God. Because all that I was seeking for was just peace and harmony and love, as every human being is looking for in this earth. No one is looking for violence. No one is looking for chaos. We all seek to have peace. We are all, by natural instinct, also by survival, we all look for stability, and then one day having a family and procreating and having children and carrying on the cycle of life. So then, of course, then I started, I had some Christian friends, of course, and they were like Protestant. So although they were like from Catholic background, they joined the evangelistic church, which is a Protestant movement inside the church. And they were very good friends. And then on a Sunday, I just went with them to the church. And I would sit there and I would listen. And I would, deep in myself, I would recite the Fatiha, because that was the only thing I knew. Like, that was the only prayer I knew. And hearing this man, I don't remember if it was a priest or if it was something else, but he would chant in a way like, and he would tell people that he was speaking with angels, and that he was, at the end, only to find out that then after this was just an invented language. It's just very funny. And then, of course, Allah is always just and always bring justice, and then things got wrong for them. But then after that, I moved into something more, uh, more, more fashion, so to say. I moved, and I was interested into Buddhist philosophy and meditation and yoga, and then and still all these things that still do not fulfill um, what your souls requires, do not truly fulfill that. They only give you temporary peace, while then you find out that, and also when you practice, that Islam is a living religion. So we are Muslims 24/7. uh, which is also funny because the first Ahmadi Muslim that I met, Hamayu Sahib, his name, told me, "So do you want to be a part-time Muslim?" So that is the funny thing, because you're either like is Muslim 24/7 or you're not. And of course, we all have our weaknesses, and Allah knows He have created us, and all the children of Adam are sinners, and the best of the sinner is the one who repents. So we all have our weaknesses, but we try our best to seek knowledge, to develop ourselves spiritually, and to better our iman, and to develop our level of taqwa. So then, coming back into my journey, um, then after that, I felt that I had somehow to reconnect with what was something that was more, in fact, more practical, and like something that was fully englobing you, like that was something that was taking you completely. I was looking for a deep change. I went in that period. I remember when I moved to London. That was when I was really looking for something, and of course, I was looking for God. I went to London with a friend, and we went for work and to improve our English skills, and so it was like a working holiday period. And that was when I had a sort of breakdown, so to say. And I remember I was enjoying so much going to pray for Jummah, and then during the other days of the week doing something completely different. So I was truly a hypocrite. But yet again, I think it's when you're so desperate that you try to follow the right path, but at the same time, you don't know how to do that. You don't have the guidance, and you're looking for guidance. You still pray for guidance, yet you keep falling and falling and falling. And I'm pretty sure Allah answered my prayers at that point, because that was the moment when I had a breakdown, and where my clock basically reversed. That's the only way I could express something that I cannot fully explain, but it was something so powerful. I I I shed so many tears that you could easily you could easily fill a bottle or I don't know, a big container. But that was when I started the process of reverting to Islam. I went into a deep depression, and then I came back to Italy, and then being close to family, I started to pray. That was the moment when I started to pray. And Islam, I remember I had one or two sessions with a psychologist, and those were enough, because this psychologist was so good, such a loving person, that gave me all the answers I needed to hear, which yet again a psychologist should not. This is not the work of a psychologist, because a psychologist should help you, to understand what's inside of you instead of saying things clearly. But that was a wake up. And then after that, the whole psychological and spiritual healing was my journey to Islam and starting to pray. I remember I was praying and praying, and then sometimes, yet I was still weak, and sometimes I would go out with my friends, which nothing to be misunderstood, but I would drink with my friends, and then I would go back home, and I would like I would go to sleep knowing that I did something wrong, and yet still praying and praying and praying deep inside of me. I was looking for this strength, for like this guidance. And then I completed my studies, and then I decided. Meanwhile, in the current years, I was visiting a friend of mine in Denmark, a good friend of mine, um, and I became so fascinated about this country. I liked it so much. Its economical stability, its educational system, like the civility, how everything is so in order. And I think this is what I was looking for. I was looking for order. I was looking for something that would set myself, uh, like trying to put my things in order, trying to have my identity, which was really fragile, try to like put it all together. So then I took the decision. I applied for university, and I took the decision to study in Denmark. And I moved to Denmark 3 years ago, and yeah, and that's when I came to know about Ahmadiyya. I think I mentioned that in the video that we have recorded a year ago. That was the time when I came to Denmark, and after a week or two, I think I was looking for a mosque so I could pray Jummah. So this mosque was an Ahmadi mosque. I was really attracted by the design. If the Ahmadi brothers know, the mosque in Copenhagen, the Nostra Jahan Mosque, have a really nice design. And by the way, the architecture designer is Egyptian. So this is also something, I don't know, maybe it's something. But I went to pray for Jummah. And after prayers, I got out from the mosque, and I got stopped by this brother, which is now my good friend, I would say. I think one of the best friends that God could ever send to me. My mentor, because he took care of me, and still he's doing that. And may Allah bless him and his family. And he just stopped me, and we just spoke out, and he asked me, so where are you from, what do you do? And I just told him a little bit about myself. I'm here to study in this university. I come from Italy. And then he said, and I remember I told him, I really like how you pray. I really like the way you're praying. I felt this when I came into the mosque. I felt this sense of peace, which I never found anywhere. Because there's something I forgot to say, but when I was going to pray Jummah, either in the UK or in Italy or in Egypt, I always had this feeling that I was going only because I had to, but hearing those shiur, those imams, shouting and like saying things that you were not fully agreeing with, and some of those in Egypt are, of course, after the Arab Spring, there, and I mean we know that the Muslim Brotherhood are there even before that, and terror attacks have happened at least as long as my historical knowledge remembers, at least 50 years ago. Um, so there's this, of course, extreme ideology among the Muslim Brotherhood, and this belief that we have to promote the jihad, we have to fight the infidels, and we have to fight the United States and the Western powers, and this and this and this, and whoever promotes the regime is he's a corrupted and he should be killed, and blah blah blah. And to all my Arab brothers, I suggest there is this very nice series that came out during Ramadan that talks about how the Egyptian military, not that I support war, of course I don't, but it explains how the Egyptian military, and especially a lot of young people that join the military because it's an easy way due to a high rate of unemployment. It's an easy way to have a job, and how a lot of them die because of these terror attacks. Like a lot of them. Like on a daily basis, there is this constant war at the borders with Libya and in the Sinai Peninsula. Anyway, coming back to that, so these imams were just like spreading words of hate, and then you pray to God, and I'm like, so when I came here to Denmark, I felt this sense of peace. Although I didn't understand the khutbah, of course, because the language is not clear, but yet, since I'm a person who really likes languages, and I currently speak 5 languages and hope to learn more, Urdu, of course, should be one of them. I always believe that it doesn't matter the language you're speaking, because language is an expression of the soul. And therefore, wherever your soul is saying, it doesn't matter the language you speak. It's like when the promised Messiah ﷺ says that you should pray in your own language. Your own language is basically yourself. Not that we should recite Quran in another language, of course not, but you should ask to God in your own language. We should like erase this idea that mainstream Muslims have that you can only pray in Arabic, or you have to know Arabic if you don't know Arabic, and that's why a lot of people are brainwashed, because someone who speaks Arabic can brainwash their head. And we know in Pakistan and in other countries, they are raised up and they are brainwashed of this idea that if they blow themselves up, they go to Jannah, and it's nowhere written in the Quran. And they memorize the Quran, and they don't even know what it means. They don't know a single verse. They don't know the meaning of a single verse. So this is to say that for me, hearing, I don't know, somehow that's also one, I think, a skill that I have, is that I can understand. Even if I don't understand the language, I focus on the tone of the voice, and I sometimes I can understand if someone is. I mean, of course, normally you do. I mean, you understand if someone is angry or sad by the voice, but also what this person is also saying. So it's like when I heard a poem of the promised Messiah salam in Urdu, and I cried so much. I didn't understand a single word of it. But I cried so much because I felt the love that was coming out of these words. So then coming back to my meeting outside the mosque, I said, I really like how you pray. And Imam Zakaria, he has such a soothing and peaceful voice. He when he recites the Quran, it's like he's singing like an like like those Italian lyrics, like Pavarotti or those big singers. So then he asked me, we should meet up for a coffee, take my number, and let's meet up. And then we met up and we started to talk about spirituality and Islam, and of course about my background, about the current situation of Muslims, and of course lots of people are joining the war in Syria and stuff like that. So of course from that was when he told me, "Do you want to be a part-time Muslim?" And I don't know, these words were really, really powerful. Besides the whole conversation and his personality is outstanding. It's outstanding. So the moment then I started, like the moment I came to Denmark, and it actually that day, that Jummah was the first of a long series of Jummah, which I never missed unless of course for obvious reasons that I could not go. But that from that day I started to go to this mosque, and I only went to another mosque, and that was because of lack of knowledge. I was yet not into Ahmadiyya, and I once went into a mosque in the city center with a student friend, and yet even there was this Egyptian imam with a big belly, and he was shouting and screaming. I was in there, and I was feeling so bad. I had this feeling, this sense of like I was afraid like someone would blow himself up now. But then that was the only time. Then I never went there again, and I always went into my mosque because it's my mosque. It became my mosque. So then I started to know more people, and then there was this brother, Imaluddin Sahib. He is also a very good friend, and he also took good care and still takes good care of me. He accompanied me in the journey in London, and having a mulakat with Azur, Aidullah bin Nasr Aziz, and other areas where we traveled together. He was and still is a very good teacher and guide. So I received 2 books from Imam Sahib. One was The Philosophy of the Teachings of Islam, and the other one was Life of Muhammad. So The Philosophy of the Teaching of Islam, written by the Promised Messiah, alayhi salam, and Life of Muhammad by Khalifa Sani, radiallahu anhu. So I started to read these books. One thing I forgot to mention is that at that time I was engaged with a Christian Italian girlfriend who was living in Italy, and I left the country but was still engaged. But so anyway, when the moment I started to like approach more and read and increase knowledge and try to practice more Islam, was the moment when I started to have collision debates with my girlfriend at the time. Our views were not anymore the same. So the thing was, what should I choose? I mean, because then I started to read even more books, and so I read also The Way of the Seekers and Zikri Ilahi, and other small books about the Promised Messiah and the Jamaat, and Noah's Ark. And currently, then later on, I read other books, Jesus in India. I'm currently reading the book of Hazur about how to establish peace in the world. I don't fully remember the title. I hope Hazur forgives me for that. But that was a time when my identity was changing. The old me was leaving me. So that was the time when I had to choose love, or this love. So of course I chose the love of Allah. It was which it was not easy, of course, but I knew it was the right way. So that's what I did, and of course, may Allah forgive me if I broke a heart, or if I hurt myself and someone else as well. But that was the journey of transformation. That was when the real transformation started. Because after that, I started to travel. I remember I went to Italy, and I went to visit the Jamaat in Italy, in Bologna. And I remember on the train, I was listening to the poems of the Promised Messiah in Arabic, and I was crying so much, and I was praying, oh Allah, please, please guide me, please help me. If this is the right path, show it to me. Like, give me peace in my heart. And I met Amir Sahib in Italy, and we had a very good time. We prayed Jummah. I traveled like 3 hours only to get there, and I couldn't care less. I could have traveled even more. That's what I think is when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says you should seek knowledge, even like if you have to travel to China, you should seek knowledge. Like knowledge, seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. The Prophet Muhammad says ﷺ. So I went there. I wanted to have my questions answered, clarified, and I sat with Amin Sahib, and we had a good talk. I talked to him about myself. I still didn't take bayat at that time, but I was of course already introduced into Jamaat, and my heart already accepted Ahmadiyya. I accepted that Promised Messiah came, and lately, if we have time, I will have the chance to say even why. So, and I remember he, may Allah bless him too. He told me, "You are now and have entered the Jamaat, the Promised Messiah. You are now a soldier of Promised Messiah." So we should not be misunderstood with those soldiers who carry guns, but the soldiers that spread words of truthfulness and love, and who use the kalima, the word, and the pen to strive in the jihad, and not the physical jihad. Well, the physical jihad should be understood as the jihad al-nafs, which is the internal struggle to attain the level of nafs al-lawama, and not to be in the state of nafs amara, and hopefully one day reaching the level of nafs al-mutma'inna, which this is what I remember I read in the book of the Prophet Messiah, Islam, the philosophy teaching of Islam. And this was also what interested me before in Islam, when I started to have interest in Islam, was the Sufism. That was like the way of the Sufis and Jalaluddin Rumi and his poetry. This was like led me to approach and get closer to Islam, and then embark on the journey in the Jamaat and Islam Ahmadiyya. So that time he told me, you should not wait too much to take your bayat. So go back to Denmark and take your bayat. Because I was already convinced in my heart. And what I always say is that Allah is the only is the only entity, Allah alone, that can change the hearts of a people. And if your heart have accepted something, no one can take it away from you. No one. This is what those mullahs and those people cannot understand. No matter how much they would try to persecute Ahmadis in Pakistan or in Arab countries, this is a matter of heart and faith. So no one can do. You can suppress us as much as you can, but you will not obtain what you want. And Allah listened to the prayers of the oppressor. So there's not much you can do about it. I mean, but anyway, then after that, make it short, so we can explore more things. I went back to Denmark, and then I signed my bayat. I signed my bayat after I went to the Jalsa Nordic. That was the first Jalsa for the Nordic countries. That was my first Jalsa. And that's where I met some very, very, very good brothers and very important figures of the Jamaat as well. And that was my very first experience as a Jalsa, and it was like unforgettable memory, really, really precious. And then I came back, and that that's when my heart was completely at peace, and I took the bayat. And then on Christmas, I went to London, and I had my mulakat with Hazur, and it was mind blowing, and it changed my life completely, because that Hazur asked me very simple questions, but from that, the guidance he gave me, I'm still carrying this until today, and still I continue. I think I mentioned that to you, what Hazur has instructed me to do, and I keep on sticking into that. And I could experience also, it's incredible how much knowledge that Hazur had. Really, it's incredible. But then, yeah, and then there in London, I had a very, very, very blessed journey. I met Brother Jonathan, who was responsible for the new Ahmadi desk. I met other brothers who are well known. Um, um, we had very good time. I've been honored. Uh, um, like I was really treated as a as a guest. Like Arabs are known to treat people, like to host people like in the best of manners. This was way over what the Arabs could do. So uh, it was really, and knowing a lot of people and meeting a lot of important figures in the Jamaat, that was just outstanding. And then I came back, um, and then after a while, then of course in last summer, I finally went to just in the UK. And then even there, it was a marvelous experience. So many blessings, so many experiences, so many things happen. And yeah, but then now I think I should mention also why I also, besides the fact, of course, that I have accepted Islam Ahmadiyya, because I found peace and love and tranquility. But I also, reading the books of the Promised Messiah, alayhi salam, and the Jamaat, and understanding more the Holy Quran and what is written into the Holy Quran. For example, verses of the Holy Quran that talks about the death of Isa and its ascent to the sky. Allah clearly says, Ya Isa inni mutawaffika wa rafi'aka ilay. So it says, Oh Jesus, I shall call you to die and elevate you unto me. So that clearly says that tawaffa means death. Another brother, a Palestinian brother, mentioned that. I think many other more have said that even before, that tawaffa means death. And that for me was like, even though my Arabic knowledge is not excellent, I would still know that tawaffa means death. End of story. Like, tawaffa, هذه الشخص, like this person died. You would say. And then also, when Allah says, they did not kill him, nor did they crucify him, but it appeared to him as if it was like that. In some Qurans, with outside of Jamaat, this is translated as another person was put there. And this is what has been told as well to me when I was younger, that it was not Jesus, it was replaced with another person, which this person has a name of Judas, I think, in Italian is Judah, and which is the person that have betrayed Isa, alayhi salam. And so Muslim would say that, mainstream Muslim would say that Allah has put this person instead of Jesus out of love. But then, of course, reading the books of the Jamaat and Promised Messiah and understanding more this, and also the fact that the Holy Quran also says, "Kullu nafsin daqatul maut," so every soul shall taste death. And also in another verse in Surah Baqarah, in the last verses, it says, "La nufarraku bayna ahadin min rusulihi." We do not differentiate any of the prophets. So, and if Muhammad, so if we say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, and Muhammad is so important, why would you give more importance to Jesus? Nothing to take, like nothing to give less importance to Jesus alayhi salam, but by saying that Jesus is living in the skies, you're basically like automatically giving like a lower rank to the Prophet Muhammad والسلام, which we know that Muhammad is also, this is also another fact, that Muhammad is the last low-bearing prophet. And if a Messiah has to come, if we pretend that Jesus will come back, then there must be another prophet coming after Prophet Muhammad. And this is like simple logic. So what I found in Islam Ahmadiyya was also the logic and reasons of argument that certainty of fact. If we talk about the Dajjal, this big beast that travels around the world so fast, flying like on the back of a flying donkey, like this is insane to think something like that in 2020 with all the technologies that we have and understanding that Dajjal is a monster. When like it's insane. And of course, the topic of Dajjal also interested me so much, and I can tell you that those who do not know or those who haven't read the books of the promised Messiah, they are so freaking out scared of this beast, like literally. And if you see some of these channels like Merciful Servants or some of these like Zakir Naik or these scholars on which I'm pretty sure you have debated them in previous times, they uh, they basically they say you could either be the Mahdi, so or you could also be the Dajjal. So they give this fear to people, and at the same time like thinking that this beast will come out and like there is no way out. Well, the understanding is that, and the Hadith also say it, after the conquest of Constantinople, Dajjal will come out. إذا فتح القسطنطينية سيخرج الدجال. إذا فتح الروم سيخرج الدجال. So, and before that was like the opening of the Arabian Peninsula, and then the opening of Faris, and then the opening of Rome, and after Constantinople, Dajjal will come out. There's a very good video from one of the Egyptian scholars, Dr. Fathi Abdus Salam. He explains very good this story about the opening of Constantinople and the coming out of the Dajjal. So Dajjal is obviously, it's the Antichrist power, but it's basically the corrupted, let's not say like it's not like a single entity, but it's a system, like the capitalistic system created and the whole fitna carried out after the opening of Constantinople with the reconquest of with the conquest of like the Reconquistada of Spain by the Spanish, throwing out the Muslims from there and then traveling to discover America with Christopher Columbus and the genocide of the indigenous people of the land, and bringing this new way of Christianity, which was not Christianity. It's the same thing that Muslims are doing, like the so-called Muslims are doing now, carrying this war in the name of God. That was the exact same thing they did. And that's the whole fitna. This is why it's called Antichrist, because he's the exact opposite of Christ. All the main religion are prophesying the coming of a reformer. The Hindus are prophesying the coming back of Krishna, the Buddhists as well, and the Jewish people are waiting for the Messiah to come, and the Christians and the Muslim. Everyone is waiting. And even though the Muslim have recognized that the signs have appeared, like the fire in the Sham, in the region of Syria and Iraq, the competition among the Bedouins in constructing towers, and the appearance of the gold, like a land of gold in the Arab Peninsula, on which the Arab tribe will fight one another. Like we're basically talking about the Gulf War and the oil, like and all the fitna that like all the little prophecies that have been prophesied, and the fact that the Dajjal itself, like description of it and the means of travel, like this donkey with that has no ending and no beginning, like this, and that it flies and people get into his belly, and the donkey will announce that he will depart at a specific time and he will get there at a specific time. A flying donkey, how could you explain in the like an aeroplane in like 1400 years ago? And besides that, all lots of prophecies and things written in the Quran which science have found to be true and discovered nowadays and have been foretold like 1400 years ago. So yeah, so this is mainly the things. I hope I didn't forget something. If so, you're very welcome to ask me questions.
Yeah, no problem, brother. Jazakallah for your time. Really inspiring journey which led you to Islam, Ahmadiyyat. In the end, if you can just speak on the importance of Khilafat and then give a message to the non-Ahmadi Muslim viewers of why they should accept the true Islam, Islam Ahmadiyyat, and we can inshallah end on that.
Inshallah. Okay. The importance of Khilafat is, I think Khilafat is the center of everything. In a world of chaos, in a world where you have so many impulses, so many decisions, so many choices, it's very easy. As I mentioned, my journey is very easy to be misled, to be misguided. And that's also the work of the Dajjal, is the deceiver. He would deceives you. And the prophecies that have foretold that after the coming of the Messiah and the Mahdi, there will be Khilafat on earth. And having the importance of Khilafah, having a leader, having Hazur and Aidullah bin Nasr Aziz as a guidance. This is something so precious that I'm still not grateful enough for this gift that Allah has given to us on earth. And the fact that you can also be in contact with the Khalifa, and we send letters to Hazur, he prays for us. You can go visit and pray behind him and have meetings, and a 2-minute meeting will feed you for the rest of the year probably, because Hazur already knows what you want and what you're looking for, and he will know what to say. And seeing that all the Muslims are so divided, so misguided, so in chaos. Everyone is looking for something, and yet they didn't find. And I pray they will find it, as I did, because at the end we're all looking for the same thing. We're looking for God and the oneness of God, and oneness of God means also that on earth there should be an epicenter, like a center where everything evolves around, and Hazur, the Khalifa, is the center, and Khilafat is what it's like the planets orbiting around him. So and I forgot to mention about my family, and I think it's important to mention that that before they were not really inclined, and they were not really happy. Probably they were worried because of what lots of Jamaat outside are doing and brainwashing people. But then after 2 years of struggle and tabligh and talking to them with reason and explaining to them certain things, and also seeing how I became a better person, a practicing Muslim, how I became more compassionate, more solidal, how I developed more empathy towards people, how I became a better person, a better Muslim, and how I succeeded in my life. That gave them a completely different perspective, until the point they recognized that Ahmadiyya, Jamaat Ahmadiyya is a peaceful Jamaat, and as long as you follow the Quran, we may diverge in certain things, but I still pray and hope that Allah will guide them, inshallah. And a message to the Arab people, which I should say in Arabic language. يا أيها العرب، يا إخوة العرب، اتقوا الله وانظروا إلى العلامات اللي ربنا بعتها إلى الأرض، وانظروا إلى الإسلام الحقيقي، انظروا إلى الحق والعدل، وانظروا في قلبكم وأسأل نفسكم هل أنتم في سلام أو أنتم في انتظار مجدد أو مهديا أو شخص يجيب السلام والإسلام الحقيقي. فإذا كان ذلك الجواب للسؤال، فانظروا للإسلام الحقيقي وافتحوا قلوبكم ولا تخافوا إلا بالله، لا تخافوا إلا بالله. وأدعي لكم التقوى والإيمان، وإن ربنا يجعلكم الصراط المستقيم. واقروا كتب المسيح الموعود والإمام المهدي عليه السلام، ستعرفوا أن هذه الشخص نزل إلى الأرض، نزل بنفس الرسالة اللي سيدنا محمد عليه الصلاة والسلام أرسلها للبشر، للعالم، سيكون رحمة للعالمين. وإن دين الإسلام هو دين المحبة والسلام، لا هو الإسلام الدين بالسيف، لا جهاد هي جهاد السيف، لكنها جهاد النفس. وإن الإسلام دين المحبة، وإن الإسلام الأحمدية هو الإسلام الحقيقي.
Jazakallah, dear brother. So in the end, we pray that Allah guides all Muslims to the true Islam and enables them to accept the Imam Mahdi and promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salatu wasalam. And once again, dear brother, we thank you for your time. Jazakallah. Assalamu Alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
If you have not yet subscribed, make sure to subscribe and click on the bell icon so you can get notifications for every new video. Also make sure to like and comment on the video and follow on Twitter and Instagram.
سفينا صل على محمد.